All right. Can you hear me in the back? Yes? Nice. Okay, welcome to our meetup. The first one in April, so exciting. This meetup is hosted by Social Developers Club, who already was on one of our meetups before. Nice, so many. So good to see you again. Real quick, what we are doing, we don't have a clicker today, so we always, no? Wait. Yes.
Okay.
Now you can probably use them.
Okay.
All right. So we're Social Developers Club. We're an international network founded to bring more diversity into tech and to lower the barrier to get into tech. So if you know someone who's always thinking of the idea, how could I maybe start in tech, just bring them to our events and then we connect them with people who are already doing it. And for us, it's super important that all skill levels can join. So you always will notice that at the events, we start at a pretty nice intro level. So you can always come to all the meetups and feel picked up to the topic. And then later, we always go into depth or also in the discussions. So it's not going to be boring for the ones who already know the topic. Of course, all ages, internationalities, genders. And we also like to combine communities. So if you ever wanted to start volunteering in another community in Hamburg, like Hacker School or whatever, you can always let us know, and then we make a connection to those communities as well. And then very important, I know it's hard, we also like to welcome all programming languages, so no bashing. I know it's super hard, but we can do it together. And yes, Social Developers Club is hosting events like this. But also workshops for kids and younger people, and we also have a conference later on this. More on this later. No, wait. Pac-Man is super important. Who already knows what I'm going to say now? Okay, then you are the ones reminding the others later, you know? Okay, this is Pac-Man. You probably all heard of him, I guess. And this is what we also do at our events. When we later standing around, grabbing some food and drinks and networking a little, then please always make sure to leave a little Pac-Man mouth open so all the time someone can join your circle. So we make everyone feel welcome, okay? Nice. And that's about Pac-Man. Next up is we have a live stream running today, and I'm probably also going to walk around taking pictures and videos. If you don't want to be on the pictures and videos, that's perfectly fine. Just let me know. Then you get a little sticker, so everyone who's taking pictures knows that you don't want to be on them or that you don't want to be published online. Otherwise, we would publish them on our social media accounts and maybe on our website. Yes. So here's the conference I was talking about. We're super spontaneous this year, so this is next month, the first Saturday in May. We're hosting a little community conference at Bunker Feldstraße. We already only have 150 tickets, so if you want to join, be fast. There already is an agenda on our website and also what speakers to expect and which workshops there will be. And also if you're a company who wants to support this, please let me know as well. You can scan the code or just visit the website or Eventbrite. It's the first one when you type in social developers something in Eventbrite, then we show up. Yes? Even more to announce. Okay, this is our next event, our next meetup. It was just published today. And there we even have fewer seats, only 40, I think, or 50, something like this. It's about teaching to code, super exciting. So if you are interested in mentoring or giving workshops, or if you're just interested in a concept about teaching others, especially in the industry of tech, then this would be the perfect meetup for you. We're going to have the Hamburg Coding School there and also someone from Hacker School. And I think now it's almost it. If you share about this event today, feel free to tag us. We always love to see what the community likes about our events. So now it really is it. And I love to welcome Simon on stage, who has a so exciting topic to bring today. We were talking first about it in February, right?
I guess so.
I guess. And I was just blown away by all this what is coming today. So thank you for being here today, Simon.
Thank you so much for the invitation and for keeping the expectations low. I like that a lot. Yeah, my name is Simon, and usually I do stuff with VR glasses, devices, whatsoever. So I work in extended reality since 2014. I ride the metaverse wave with my company. For real, we consult companies in terms of, okay, how can you utilize XR technologies? I'm not talking about blockchain, NFTs or something like that. That's my focus on how I earn money. But luckily for you, I will not talk about any of this today, because today we will be talking about, wow, artificial intelligence, especially generative AI. And I'm not now a self-proclaimed AI expert. I'm more here today as a creative. I was talking to Julia about the things I had in mind that I could create with, for example, Midjourney and so on. And well, there isn't really any day without new headlines from, okay, you can make shit tons of money. Pardon my French. Is it allowed to speak like that today? Oh, wow, great. I should have asked that before. Wow, ChatGPT got banned in Italy, blah, 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 blah. Is here anyone in this room who has not used ChatGPT before? Well, there's still people left who have not tried this. Amazing. And with Midjourney, is anyone here who has not tried Midjourney? Oh, way more. Okay. So maybe I will tell you some new stuff or show you some new stuff. That'd be cool. But in general, we see there's lots of things happening from, of course, it will impact our educational system, our creativity, maybe even a religion like gods and the machine. Wow. I don't know about that, but we will see and figure out. I think most of you have seen stuff like that, like cool retirement opportunities for Angela Merkel and Barack Obama, Trump wearing a LGBTQ or a t-shirt like that, and of course stuff that can potentially, and this will be a part of a second talk, more like mine, tear the fabric of our society. Like imagine you are not educated enough to realize whether this is an AI fake or not, and whether it is also, I don't know. Okay, most of you have already tried these tools, and you obviously are hopefully aware that most of these tools get integrated into common tools like Notion, for example. I organized my entire life with Notion, and we have it in Bing. Has any one of you tried the new Bing? I mean, I felt really bad installing Bing or Edge on my MacBook. It was painful, but it was worth the experience, I'd say. I haven't tried Copilot yet, but it's plain obvious that there's so much stuff happening right now, and there's barely a way around this. So we have, in general, this cool chatty stuff, ChatGPT. We can enter whatever we want and get a response that's from time to time really cool, from time to time not. We have Midjourney for pictures, the same. And it's based on stable diffusion and large language models, but I'm not, and this is the point, I'm a user, not an AI expert. And I was wondering, how could I use this technology, or how are people using it? And right now, we see a lot of different cases, from marketing. My fiancée, she's working in craft beer or the beer industry, and this was one of the headlines there. I don't know if you would really need ChatGPT for making a claim like Zitronik süffig jubiläumswürdig, Prost auf 10 Jahre Kraftwerk. Well, it's something, but it's more interesting to see where this is going in a very more sophisticated way. For example, Nike. There are plenty of users who try to make up these kind of funny connections of famous intellectual property. For example, Darth Vader as Balenciaga, with, of course, high fashion attempts. And here I like this a lot, because lots of my clients are also asking me about what's happening here. Benjamin Benichou is making a lot of these concept art, fictional campaigns, Nike Zero Gravity. And here you can already see, if you don't have the experience, that it's really hard to recreate the actual product. For example, this shoe, especially at the heel, doesn't look any way like this. I mean, the overall imagery and the vibe and atmosphere is pretty close, but you cannot really use this to, for example, virtualize a real product. And how do I use that? Of course, I do the stuff in the middle as well, as you will see in just a bit, but I like this, and this is really painful. Because workflows, optimizing workflows, do you do that already? Like, Where do you use ChatGPT? Maybe we should talk about this later. But what I did, just to test how well ChatGPT-4 works, was defining a role. And this is a superpower of this. Like, okay, you are now an XR metaverse expert, and you will judge cases, and you will write a lot of stuff. Why this is important, and the outcome for judging certain cases, like copy and pasting a link in there, was really almost on level what I did, like how I would describe it. And this is also repeatable. For example, I have an article idea. This is really interesting. Okay, you are now an XR journalist. And this is also painful, just realizing, okay, I'm not that good at writing. That AI is probably on level with me. And also for my life, it's not too bad. I like cooking, but also I'm really a bit uncreative in terms of researching what I want to create or create. I told ChatGPT that you are now my personal chef and you will provide me with ideas for breakfast, lunch, and so on. I will from time to time ask for inspiration, or I would give you a list of ingredients I have at hand, and you will provide me with recipes that I can cook in 30 minutes. And we'll also provide a shopping list and so on and so on and so on. This works astonishingly well. I don't cook any more than before, but it's a really cool case to see that this is working. What did I do now? Because I like ideas, I like storytelling. And this is what Julia and I were talking about. I do a lot in terms of virtual fashion, virtual goods, like things that don't really exist, but people could wear as avatars, in my case, of course. And I had the idea of creating a virtual brand, like, virtual fashion brand, and even made headlines. And I was quite stunned by that because I didn't expect any of this, because it was just an experiment, something I tried for fun. And people found it to be good, and actually people are booking me for AI workshops, which I don't get at all. But to give you an impression, the overall idea was, as you all know, it's super easy to create stunning visuals with Midjourney. I wanted to tell a story. So this is a story of the fashion brand Dionysus. It's founded by a guy called Alexis Arisu, who is half Japanese, half Greek, and combines techwear, a certain fashion style, with ancient Greek mythology. The collections are always based on, of course, Greek gods and other mythological figures. And what I can do now is really write stories with... I can write stories. Just in the chat, I wrote a lot of contextual information with ChatGPT. Like really, okay, I have this idea, going into a dialogue, and now I can just enter something, will receive a prompt or contextual information for other collections. And this doesn't take any more time. And for me, it's all about really pushing that idea forward. Right now, I have 2D collections, pictures of 2D collections, which now in version 5, the latest Midjourney version, look way, way different, I think, especially paying close attention, than like comparing them is really interesting. But for me, it will not stop there. What I want to do as well is bring them into the third dimension so that avatars or AR filters, so that you could actually wear these kind of fashion pieces if you wanted to. Well, that will take some time because there's no artificial intelligence yet to do that well and proper, but well, I have a little exhibition in my virtual space already. And this is also, I'm not going on Marvel or Disney on this, but I'm trying to really add more layers to the storytelling, like a fictional magazine, Horde, which is, well, obviously not written right because diffusion algorithms can't do that yet. But you can read some stuff. And there we have the founder, Alexius, and his friend, Lila Andrews, who is the editor-in-chief for that fictional magazine. I can even write interviews on certain topics, and so on and so on. But what I found interesting as a creator is to actually, of course, you have to bring the idea, that's the bad news. You can do a lot of crazy stuff with these systems or tools, but you would have to have an idea. If you don't have any idea, that's, well, they can help you with that as well. But in the end, what enabled me to do that was I had the idea of creating that virtual fashion label. And I took it so far, I mean, I created all the context, but in the end, it was really interesting to see, okay, I'm good at prompt engineering, actually, not too bad, but an AI is better than that. So I coming back to the point of roles, I defined or taught ChatGPT to become a prompt engineer for Midjourney. Those systems are isolated per se, so they don't work together at all. But I entered that part of text and received this. I entered that part of text and received this. And the outcome was far better than anything I could prompt. And then I go on, for example, social media, everything here, from the logo to the bio to everything on as text and even the captions on the social media profile of Dionysus is AI-based. And then I go back, I return, I do it all over again and again whenever I feel like it, creating new collections and so on, just for the fun of it. And now here we can see it a bit, and I like this a lot because the contextual thing here going on is interesting because way too much talking at this time of day. So I like this a lot because it's a great example. It already knew if I prompt or enter something like this, it meaning ChatGPT, I don't need to specify that I want an origami techwear, which I call that fashion style, which has been defined before. It wasn't included in the initial prompt, but it knows that and adds it here. Also, it adds some random photographer as reference, which I didn't find any Andreas Papadopoulos online. It's just like a hallucination, as we know, or many of you already know. And also parameters like winning a photographer award, and which kind of photographer award, there are plenty. I don't know. In terms of style, this is rather unspecific, but it gets more specific here. And this just takes seconds to be more precise regarding your creative output. And some stuff is great. It's still a lot of trial and error. I like this one a lot and the one below, but this is too bleak and dark for Poseidon and the ocean, at least from my perspective. But in general, I like this fooling around, experimenting, learning on the fly. And this is another thing. I actually didn't really plan to include it in the presentation, but last week, a bit hangover, you will see a picture of that later on as well. Sorry, but behind Be Real, we just recalled it to Be Real here. But in general, Olympus Heights is a fictional story idea my fiancé and I had over 10 years ago. It's a bit of Californication, nip tuck, the Greek gods as modern personalities with all their drama live in sunny California. Cool. I felt like, okay, I know that visual stuff now, but how can I do something, I wouldn't say better, but a bit more extensive? How could I go deeper in terms of AI creation? And oops. This is what I did. In general, I came up with an idea, once again. I did pretty much the same stuff, like contextual writing, scripts, a whole plot for the whole first season of that fictional series, a script for the pilot episode, and so on and so on and so on. And then I went in and told them, okay, now how would you describe the visuality of that storyboard? And I created tons and shit tons of amazing footage and lots of footage that wasn't amazing at all. But in general, it was a lot of trial and error again and again and again. And I spent 1.5 days to, well, at first I just wanted to publish a collage or something like a post with pictures again. But I decided, okay, well, we're speaking about a show. Why shouldn't I create a teaser? And this is where it becomes a bit weird, with AI, of course, mostly. Then I used Mubert and SoundDraw for a background score. I used 11 Labs for voice synthesis and an app that's pretty much, I don't know, a random app on the App Store where you can put pictures in and animate little bits. I mean, then pushing it all into iMovie and edit it. And editing is not my strong suit, as you will see in just a bit, but it felt really amazing to just have all this stuff that hasn't been there before, that has been hallucinated by, first of all, my ideas and then shaped by an AI. And this might be critical in the end, but, well, I posted this and I liked the idea, and now you can see.
Welcome to Olympus Heights, where we live like gods among mortals. I'm Zeus Montgomery, master of transformation, and this is my family, my wife Hera and the others, Athena, Demeter, Aphrodite, Ares, and Hermes. In our world, power is everything. But with power comes temptation. Can we hold on to our divine status, or will we fall from grace? Join us in Olympus Heights, where nothing is ever what it seems.
So everything in here, from that fictional Epic Streams logo, apart from the written parts where I actually typed something, but also the font recommendation was done by ChatGPT. I asked like, okay, what font would fit to that series? And then they provided me with that stuff. And it's really interesting to see where all of this is going. And I'm pretty sure someone who has actual skills in editing would have done a much better teaser with the footage I created. But it's more about the point of creation and embracing the kind of experimentation. And it doesn't even stop there. We're right now at a point where video generation content like Runway Gen 1 is also kind of happening. And these are examples. This is an actual behind-the-scenes shoot for a shot from all the things you've seen. This is me on my couch, just while I see the joy and fun I am having. But I needed video content to actually animate this. And Runway, I don't know if any of you experimented with Runway so far? Wow, okay. It's pretty interesting because you upload a video, whatever you want. You can film chairs and then enter a prompt, as you do with ChatGPT and Midjourney. Or you could add a style reference. And I took the style references I already had. So I created this in VR, just a small little shoot and a VR painting tool, try to mimic the camera movement I wanted to. It's horrible because it's tied to my head, but there are no cool tools for that now. And combined this, and this is the outcome. It's, well, it's early and it's glitchy, it's not perfect, but you get the idea. It's really that style. Here the same. Without that background, this would probably work. And you could do everything you potentially imagine with these tools. But also, and this is nightmare-inducing fuel, back to Dionysus. I took an example video that's integrated in Runway, added this, and well, wow, I don't know if you back there can see this. This is horrible. I just did this yesterday evening, and I'd rather not do that again. Yeah, okay, now I did this and I will continue using or utilizing these kinds of technologies, but what does that actually mean, or what did I learn? For once, prompting is that art? I don't know, but it is a process, it is a skill set. You learn with an AI, for example, having ChatGPT helping you, being more precise in your prompts. You can do that on different levels and so on and so on. What I also found interesting is that right now you cannot really recreate certain styles. So for example, the characters you've seen in the Olympus Heights trailer are archetypes. They are really weird standardized, like the Zeus character, long gray hair and a beard, and glasses, aviator sunglasses. Well, the face isn't always the same because it's really hard to recreate. It is possible to a certain extent. This will change because of several tools that are in development right now. But it's really more easy to focus on topics like the Mars example we've seen before, or for example, Dionysus with origami tech, where it's a certain very distinct style. It's also interesting to not have that mindset that how many people live in Hamburg, asking ChatGPT stuff like that. That's a Google question. What is really interesting is using that contextual information that's being built up. You feed it, you have it in one chat, and it will be able to rely and go back and reference to that. Thinking of it as a dialogue and a partnership really brings out the best potential in creative terms. And of course, it's really, I should have made a collage of all the shitty stuff that came out there, but it's really interesting to experiment, to see how you can influence those kinds of models, what they understand better or worse, what kind of prompt parts override stuff. It's really interesting, but it's really also great to just experiment, as I said, and seize that opportunity because it's really low barrier compared to stuff I always talk about, like VR stuff. Having a VR headset is expensive and so on and so on. This you can use in your browser on pretty much any device. And it's it's happening right now. Yeah? I mean, we've all seen that in the very beginning. It will not potentially stop. We don't know that. But we have also here, and this is also really, really crucial, and it's a point I like to emphasize. Technological development doesn't really come out of the blue. We have that journey from 1964 on to today. We don't know what's happening in the future. We can maybe anticipate some stuff. We can try to shape stuff, and that will be really crucial. But it's happening on so many levels, not only AI, also extended realities, cloud computing, whatever your topic is. Technology always evolves. And this is also crucial for me to understand or see what's happening in the field here, like 3D generational tools from NVIDIA and so on. That's really interesting. It's mostly research stuff right now. The tools that are freely available, like Pointy or Kadim, they are really lackluster like in terms of output, but this will change rapidly. And this is super freaky. I do a podcast, actually two, but that doesn't matter too much. There's an editing tool called Descript where you upload your podcast episode and you can change, you can an automated transcript and you can just erase a line and it will automatically cut that line. That's cool, but you can also add new stuff because this thing will synthesize your voice. And then you can, well, integrate whatever you want into your podcast recording, which is kind of creepy. And speaking of, we'll get to creepy. Preparing the stage for you. And this is also like, and there, as I mentioned, there will be more control regarding the visual output. This is an official experiment by Nike, including the swoosh of Nike into like in certain landscapes. And it's really interesting to see where this is going because then you will be able to also have consistent characters and items, whether it be fashion or faces, I don't know. It's a constant, things are changing so rapidly. And this is also where, like, my main learnings, apart from actually using this, were like questions that arose while using or utilizing these technologies. So basically, we are the creators. Without any idea, we can't do really amazing stuff with this. So we still need to be creative. We have to provide ideas. And we curate what the world will see out of the generated content. But, and this is really obvious from my kind of thousands of prompts I wrote in the past month, there are biases. For example, if you want a man, no, not a man, a person or a human being with VR headset, that will most likely be a man wearing a VR headset. Also, who defines, if you prompt something like, I want a picture of a beautiful person, who defines what beautiful is? We'll dive into this, right? Yes, nodding. Consistency, I already mentioned this, and also what we have, of course, is more a philosophical question. What actually is creativity? Is that creativity? Is the creativity the idea I bring, the realization or the execution of it? I don't know. This will challenge many industries that are coming. And of course, as stated earlier, and we all know fake news, and this will be really, really hard for our society and the challenges arising. And with that, I will end now and give the stage to you, Steffi.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Nice. Then thank you, Simon. And of course, you know, if we wouldn't be Social Developers Club if we wouldn't also have like a more critical view on this topic. And yeah, Simon already did all the nice teasing about it. And now I'd like to welcome Steffi on the challenging view on contemporary AI. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm excited to be here and ruin the mood. So my talk is Happily Ever After, Challenging View on Contemporary AI Narratives. I'm Steffi. I'm a machine learning and data engineer at Innovex. And you can find me ruining the mood a bit more on Twitter on this handle. So today, my talk has got two parts. The first part is the on-stage part. I want to take you on the stage of the narratives of AI that are popularly told. Right? We're going to start with three narratives that I see a lot in the media and I hear a lot of people talk about it. And these narratives relate to our future with AI and that it's going to be very bright and beautiful. And to build this future, we need certain ingredients. And I'm going to tell you what these are in the popular narrative. And then we're going to go off stage and look behind the scenes at what I call the supply chain of AI. So what is actually behind these ingredients? And then finally, I'm going to look at AI realities or the impacts that AI has on our social, environmental, economic, and power structures. So bear with me. AI narratives, right? The first one is that AI will lead to a better future. A lot of people believe that, the future is really bright. AI will help us revolutionize our work, healthcare, and a lot of other things. And secondly, some people believe that we will create AGI soon, artificial general intelligence, and that we need to make sure it is aligned with human values, right? For those of you who haven't heard of AGI yet, it hasn't got a very good definition, I would say, but people believe that the super intelligence is right around the corner and that we need to make sure that it's nice to us rather than nasty. So, yeah. And then the third one is AI will help us solve our most pressing problems. That goes in with the first one. So AI could help us solve problems in education that we have, in healthcare, or even to tackle climate change. Right? And to do that, we need a few ingredients. And these are algorithm, data, and compute. So talking about algorithms, the view that is sometimes publicly expressed is that algorithms learn on their own, right? And the bigger an algorithm is, the better it is able to learn certain things. Like, for example, ChatGPT, we've seen that earlier. So algorithms are generally getting bigger. And then we also have data, and we have a lot of it nowadays. And the bigger the data is that an algorithm is trained on, the better its performance will be on certain problems. And people also think that the more data you have, the better you are able to capture the world as it really is. And then finally, because you need so much data to train these huge algorithms, you also need a lot of compute, so hardware, to train it on, right? So bigger algorithms, big data, bigger hardware, or more of it. But luckily, we've got the cloud, right? So nowadays, you can just push all of your compute into the cloud and be done with it. Nice. Is it though? So now we're going off the stage and first of all, looking at the processes and the materials and the people that are behind these ingredients. And I'm going to start again with algorithms. And I said earlier that algorithms learn on their own. But is that really true? Well, you might have guessed no. So there's many decisions that come into play when we talk about the training or development of algorithms, or what we call machine learning models, right? So first of all, you have to decide where the data comes from, and then also what algorithm you're actually going to use, because there's not only one, there's many different ones. And also in terms of neural networks, which are very popular right now, there's many different architectures that you can use. And then also there's many decisions that need to be taken regarding the training process. And most importantly, about the goal of the training, right? So what the algorithm is actually supposed to learn and how it is supposed to do that. And that is encoded mathematically. And so now we can ask ourselves who actually makes these decisions. And it is people working in the tech industry, right? Here and in the US and obviously elsewhere as well. But especially in Europe, in the US, those of you who work in tech or know the tech industry know that it's a pretty homogeneous place, right? The workforce is pretty homogeneous. It's mostly white, mostly cis male, mostly college educated, and from a, I would say, middle or high income background. And that leads to certain problems, as Simon has said earlier. There's biases in AI models. And that is to a part because of that homogeneity in the tech workforce, because people don't have certain experiences, like, for example, racism, right? If you're a white person in tech, you don't experience racism. And another thing that's been happening recently a lot with big tech companies is that they are actually not telling us anything about their algorithms anymore. You might have heard about, you probably heard about GPT-4, right? was released recently, and OpenAI published a technical paper about this, where section 2 states basically that they're not going to tell us anything about the algorithm, its size, the data it was trained on, the training process, and so on, because of safety reasons and because it's such a competitive landscape. So I will put a big quotation on OpenAI from now on, okay? So, the next point is data. And here we can ask ourselves who actually creates that data. And essentially, it's all of us, right? So everyone that uses digital devices and the internet, we all do online shopping probably, we post stuff on social media, we use Google, and we leave traces behind. And all this can be used or seen as data. And who collects that data? Well, tech companies, right? And they do that by a process that is called scraping, which is popularly used nowadays. So imagine they just take all the text that is on every Wikipedia site that they can get their hands on, for instance, and build a data set from that. Or images that are publicly available on the internet. So imagine if you ever posted a public image of yourself, for instance, a Twitter profile photo or somewhere else, it will probably be by now in some tech company's data set, right? And that, I find that a bit scary, to be honest. But the really important question here is actually who owns the data? And tech companies are being smart about this because they're saying, well, you provided this information into the public sphere, so it is essentially public information, so we are allowed to use it and make money from it, right? So, finally, compute. I've been talking about the cloud, right? But the cloud is not some ethereal place. It is data centers that are basically placed all over the planet with lots and lots of servers and GPUs that are used for training AI. And these are produced or made out of real raw materials that need to be sourced and put together by humans, right? And since these servers run all day, they use up a lot of energy. And also they need to be cooled using water. And now that we've looked at the supply chain, I want to dive a little bit deeper now. Yeah, this is my dumpster fire. I hope you like it. I'm going to start with the environmental impacts. So I've been talking about GPUs, right? But this doesn't only concern AI. Actually, this is a problem in general. So every one of us that has a MacBook or laptop, smartphone, all of these things contain raw materials that have to be mined somewhere. And one of these raw materials is cobalt, and it's also used in GPUs. And cobalt is mostly sourced in the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo, where in 2019, 14 families basically filed a lawsuit against some of the big hardware producers, Apple, Alphabet, and a few other companies. And these 4 families said that their children were either lost limbs in accidents there, and 6 of them even died in the mines, right? So that's horrible, right? And it doesn't stop there because these mines are also contaminating the drinking water resources around and hence damaging farmlands and ecosystems. And then also, I talked about that the servers actually need to be running on something. They use up energy. And the problem is with AI models, I said they're getting bigger and bigger, right? And bigger AI models use up a lot more energy and produce more CO2 as a result. And the problem with generative AI today, these models are huge and they've been getting bigger since in 4 years. I think we've had a factor of, I don't want to say anything wrong, so, but I've got some resources that you can check out later. And the thing is, when OpenAI decides and other companies decide not to disclose any information about the size of their models, we can't actually know the environmental impact and the energy consumption that these models have. And that's bad. And the thing is that this is driving the environmental impacts which hit the global south and marginalized communities harder than it does the global north. And so we also have to talk about social impacts. And Simon has already talked about the bias that he saw in the models when he generated images. And I've already said earlier that the tech industry is pretty homogeneous in the US and the EU. And so is actually the data that is collected from the internet, for instance. Because most of the data scraped from the internet has a large skew towards these geographic areas and underrepresents the rest of the world. Hence, that products or the AIs that are trained on these data sets will not work as well in other locations, for instance. Yeah, and then there's another problem that we've also seen nicely pictured on Simon's slides earlier, which is deepfakes, right? A study in 2019 looked at deepfakes that were out there, and they found that at that time, 96% of the images they saw were pornographic, and most of them contained women. And the problem is that many women around the planet, there's news articles already, that women have lost their jobs because of these images being circulated. And an even bigger problem is that they do not have any legal recourse because there's no laws about this. Only 3 US states actually have laws about this issue. Next, we can look at the economic impacts. And one of them that is, has got quite a bit of attention is copyright issues, right? Copyright infringement. So Stable Diffusion, one of these image creation models, which was released last year by Stability AI, was created based on data scraped from the internet. And this data contained a lot of digital artwork by artists, which were neither asked or compensated for that, right? And 3 of them have actually decided 2 months ago to sue the company. And this is a legal precedent because nobody actually knows what this means for copyright, right? So if an AI creates an image that is very close to something that an artist has produced beforehand, who's actually liable for the copyright infringement? Because the AI is not a person, right? So who's behind it? Is it the developer? Is it the whole company? And how do we deal with this, right? So these are issues that we need to tackle. And then what I find really sad is actually I've read some Reddit thread the other day of artists just being really distraught about, them fearing losing their income, essentially, being replaced by these machines. I mean, I don't want to scare everyone and say we're all going to lose our jobs. I don't think that's what's going to happen. But I think that the argument to say, technological progress has always gotten rid of some jobs but produced new ones, I think we should be a bit careful about this because it's not like the 5th law of thermodynamics. And second of all, I think people need retraining to do new jobs, right? And the retraining is costly and takes a lot of time. And the companies that are putting people out of jobs are not necessarily the ones paying the price, but society is. And also, the pace of change right now is so rapid that we don't seem to be prepared as societies to tackle this, right? So essentially what these companies are doing, they are privatizing profits and socializing losses. And when we talk about the economy, we also have to look at monopolization, because this is what has been happening in the tech space for the last 20 years, essentially, right? So the big tech companies, especially in the US, are monopolies. And you can say, regarding AI, what's actually happening is a democratization process, or that's what OpenAI was founded upon, this idea of like democratizing access to AI. But I would say, if you steal people's data off the internet, and then you train a model on that, and keep all the info about it to yourself, and then you sell us, the consumers, access to it back through your API, and in my opinion, that's not really democratic. I don't know what you think. And yeah, monopolization is also bad in other respects, because what we're seeing now is that these big companies are basically shaping the directions of research, right? Where research is going, and it's going towards larger and larger generative models. And universities are left behind because they simply cannot afford to train these huge models, right? Simple as that. So the tech workforce are basically the only ones who get to play with these state-of-the-art models. And then also, if you are a small business and you're thinking about using APIs by a big tech corporation or by someone like OpenAI to base your business on that, monopolization is also bad for you, potentially, because they have complete control over the pricing model, because you have nowhere else to go, right? So that's also a point for us small fish out there. And then finally, I want to talk about power, because you cannot talk about monopolization without talking about power, essentially. And monopolization leads to centralization and more control for these big companies. And what they use this control for is, for instance, for lobbying. So US tech giants are spending millions of dollars and millions of euros as well to lobby politicians in the US and EU. Very popular right now is to spend money to get yourself out of the AI Act, so the regulation that the EU is right now coming up with to regulate artificial intelligence. And also, you obviously get control over who gets to work for you, who gets to do research on these cool models. And then finally, what Simon has also talked about, the basically effects on possible manipulation and misinformation. I mean, we already have that, right? This is nothing new. This has been going on for forever, probably. But generative AI gives people a whole nother set of tools with these deep fakes that we've seen. And the AfD, for instance, I just saw an image. They are already onto this. They created an image which apparently shows angry refugees, and they put some shitty right-wing slogan underneath it. And I only realized that was a fake image because one of the guys has 6 fingers. So yeah, should have thought about that. But that's not going to be a problem for long, I guess. So we're not always going to be able to look out for, ooh, are the hands wonky or something? Yeah. And finally, this can have dire consequences. Hate speech can have dire consequences. In 2016, hate speech was rampant on Facebook against the Muslim minority of the Rohingya in Myanmar. And Facebook hardly had any content moderation in that country. And even though people inside Facebook were actually telling them that there was a problem, they didn't act on it. And this led, not only that, but the hate basically led to a genocide, right? Thousands of people were killed, and many more were displaced and had to flee the country to neighboring Bangladesh, right? And so I think that combining generative AI's capabilities with I would say, broken social media algorithms that push more and more divisive content is just a digital dumpster fire, right? And that's why I put the icon on there. And in the end, I think that the public discourse is focusing on these, these future-oriented narratives saying that AI is going to be so great, it's going to be, it's going to make our life so much easier. We just have to be careful that the super intelligence doesn't kill us, and then we're going to be fine, right? So that's what I'm hearing a lot and seeing a lot. And this letter that was published last week by the Future of Life Institute also kind of has that sound to it, or that's what I read in it. And I think that the effect is also that the media is always picking this up and presenting it as some kind of fact, right? Even though we are talking about hypothetical future issues here, right? AGI, people are not sure whether this is going to happen. This is not a scientific fact, right? And what is left out of the spotlight are the real material impacts that AI is having right now and will have in the future. And I've only talked about part of them today. There's many more examples. And I think that instead of just throwing our hands up in the air in horror of this potential superintelligence doom thing, and in essence, what that leads to is giving the people that are claiming this narrative more power to shape the world in the future. And I think we should be very careful about that and rather concentrate on how we can actually shape the world we want to live in as individuals and also as collectives, right? So if you really care about something, get active. Look at other people that are already doing stuff, or find other people that care about the same thing and try to figure out how you can change the world and make it a better place to live in. And to do that, I want to bring this point home as well. It's also valid not to use AI. AI is not a fix for everything because technology can't fix social problems. Thank you.
I know, it's super hard again to not ask all the questions now, but you'll have the chance in like 20 minutes. You earned yourself a break. Bathrooms are on the back, and I forgot to mention it earlier, sorry, I got emergency exits are to my left. Thank you.
And you can also come and talk to us in the break now, so that's obviously okay.
Thank you. Hello, hello. Welcome back. I know it's been a little longer break, but nice that you're still here for the little fireside chat. Without fire today, you saw we tried, but it didn't work out. So we just be us. Now it's your turn. If you have questions, feel free to ask them on both talks. And yeah, just raise your hands. We have someone, Sandra, in the front with a mic here. And that's about it. Are there already questions? Okay. Or should we? Yeah. Okay, let's go.
It's me again.
Hi.
There's this process that especially social media platforms go through that Cory Doctorow is called enshittification. Where at the beginning, they try to get users. So they make the user experience great. It's cheap or free and it's fully featured and it works. And then once you have a large enough user base, you want to get business customers because that's where the money is. So then you start catering to their interests, you start serving ads everywhere, and the user experience gets worse and the business customer experience gets better. And once you have a critical mass of business customers, you can start to become profitable, because until then you've been losing money hand over fist, but once you start to get all the businesses in the world advertising on your platform, you can start making money and making their experience worse. And I'm wondering if that process is, if that's applicable to the current AI boom we're seeing, and if so, what the next two steps will look like. Because right now, it's sort of great for the end user. It all works. Some of it's free, some of it's very cheap. It's all accessible what will this look like once OpenAI really wants to, you know, start making cash? What's, you know, Adobe is releasing their own AI. What's the next step in this? Well, how is it going to look once it gets horrible for us?
Yeah, I'm going to take this. I think the question is, I think it's very nice that you mentioned enshittification. I think it's a great term. And Cory Doctorow is a very impressive guy. But yeah, I think it depends on who you're talking about. Are we talking about the same thing that you described happening in social media? Like it gets shitter for the customers? Because I don't think that's what Sam Altman has in mind, to be honest, for OpenAI. I think he wants to get at the big fish now, right? So, and they already got 10 billion by Microsoft, and Microsoft got GPT-4 essentially in all of their products now in their Microsoft 365 suite. And I think they're going to try to tackle more, like to tap in more of that market essentially. I think getting exposure for the rest of us is great for marketing, but essentially maybe not what they're after. But I'm not sure how they're gonna shittify it, to be honest. Maybe you've got an idea.
They put in ads for every prompt. No, I don't. I honestly don't think this will happen because you don't see advertisement in Microsoft Office and so on and so on. This is more a tool. This is not a social network where people. Of course, you could put in ads, but I don't think this will happen business strategy-wise because in the end, they will have a calculation running in the background whether they make more money with business deals, Microsoft, etc., pp., enabling people to use their tools for a fee, essentially, like Adobe does as well, compared to the ad business. I don't see that happening. It might be, but maybe a free tier or something where you can use ChatGPT if you want to freely, and then you see an ad every once in a while. It might happen, but honestly, yeah, kind of like maybe YouTube as well. I don't know.
Or maybe you have to actually label ChatGPT's shitty output so you get to prompt some more. Maybe that's a viable business model, right? Right. Free data labeling. Okay.
But, I mean, how long will it take until Bing AI says, you know, I can help you with that, but Microsoft Copilot might. You know, that seems very like a reasonable thing Microsoft might do.
Possibly, yeah.
No arguing there.
Yeah, I think also the shittiness will probably not stay in sort of online user experience world, right? Which is shit on many websites, as we all know. Cookie banners don't help, but you know. But I think what I'm more interested in and worried about is how this will, for instance, impact the job market, like I said earlier. I don't think that AI is going to replace all of us. So just to make that point clear again. But I think it might make our jobs shittier, actually. Or not maybe the work processes, which might get really sped up and really great and creative and so on at the beginning. But I think it could, when monopolization gets stronger, actually endanger worker positions, right? So it weakens people's ability to act against or in favor of their own, basically in favor of their own money and their own life and so on, and rather gives the employers more power over them. So, yeah.
Just raise your hands if you have questions. What do you two think should AI models be actually used for or not used for?
Do you want to start?
No.
Okay, so I wrote that question down and I didn't know an answer before, like 5 minutes ago. But I would go against autonomous weapons. So I think that's, I think we shouldn't do that. People are doing it. It's crap, right? But I think that's definitely something that shouldn't be done. And to be honest, I'm also not a large fan, and I might make some enemies here, of autonomous driving myself, not on our roads. I don't care about some, I don't know, agricultural use cases. I think that's fair enough, you know, but I think it's the promises of like self-driving cars they have not come into being yet, and it's a very challenging problem, but I don't think it's necessarily a problem that we should spend so much money and energy on when we have like a dooming climate crisis, right? Because I don't think that personal vehicles will actually help us solve this in the long run. I think we need better public transport.
While I agree with that, of course, because I have a car. It's a very old Nissan Micra, and I drive it maybe twice every 3 months. So this is how relevant car transportation is to me. But in general, I think I still believe in autonomous driving because humans are way worse than like prospectively, not now, not speaking of the current status quo, but the things people do out of ego and stuff like that, driving way too fast and so on and so on. I think this is actually a great use case. But I think of course, I can't disagree with the weapon systems and so on. That'd be really weird now. Like, yeah, cool, sure. How about Skynet? Yeah. I think what's really difficult, and that's why I wanted to answer the question in the first place, is that it's really hard because we've seen that this is a topic that will potentially impact so many different layers of our, society, but also of personal lives. And I think the communication aspect, and they're differentiating between, okay, I have maybe a creative communication, whatever, my personal or interpersonal communication, but in terms of political and fact-based communication, this is really hardcore, like the hallucination effects we've been talking about, that ChatGPT, for instance, really invents academic sources is, really bad. And if we think further, ChatGPT-4 now just invents links, but if we think really into that direction, how far will it one day go when there is, for example, in that kind of academia, behind that hallucinated link, a hallucinated article or journal or whatever, and one day you really can't tell anymore. So I'm not a huge fan of regulation per se, but there should be rules applicable there somewhere.
Yeah, I think actually what you just mentioned about scientific articles, I heard of a few conferences that have been bombarded by ChatGPT created papers, right? So this is a real problem, and people don't want to go through all that crap, obviously. And so now there's new business models coming up spotting what was actually created by AI and what wasn't. But this is like a cat and mouse game, right? Like in cybersecurity, essentially, the attacker tries new stuff, you try to basically prevent the attacks and so on. So it's back and forth. And but watermarking contents is also something that is like a research area that people are looking into. How do you make sure that you can recognize whether something is created by an AI, whether it be an image or text or something else? But I don't think I know enough about that stuff to make any valid claims here. So, yeah.
So in the last talk there mentioned AGI, and I just wanted to ask, like, how can we differentiate AI and AGI, and how are we supposed to know that, for example, in 2024 we have AGI? How do we know that it's not AI anymore, but it's AGI?
Wow. Yeah. Okay. I'll have to repeat that. Okay. So the question was basically how can we differentiate, for instance, next year or in a few years from now, what is AI and what is AGI, right? I think I have to basically be honest about my position on this now, because I don't think that AGI will become a reality personally. But as I try to make clear in the talk, this is an opinion, and the opposite side is also just an opinion, right? People, or a belief, I would say, right? I don't believe that it's going to happen, but other people do. and we can have a philosophical discussion about this. But actually, AGI is, to my knowledge, not a term that is well defined. And so is AI, artificial intelligence. What's that supposed to mean? We don't have a definition of intelligence per se. So we just have tests that measure supposedly what intelligent is, but they just measure what the test measures, as a good friend of mine has said to me. So yeah, so the question is really, how do we, at what point do we say, okay, this is more intelligent than a human, because what does the machine have to be able to do to be considered more intelligent than me? Does it have to be able to tie my shoelaces, or do the washing up, or beat me at, I don't know, table tennis, which I'm really shit at, you know, so like, or at some math task, which it probably can at some point, right? So that's, yeah, I think for me, the answer is we don't know whether AGI will be a possibility, and the Turing test and whatever test we have doesn't really help in differentiating, you know? So I think we should talk about beliefs rather than facts here.
Regarding the table tennis AI, you should really try 11 VR. It's a great table tennis virtual reality application, and I really got, it was a painful experience, and I can't really add too much more substance to that, apart from if there will ever be AGI, the corporations funding that, the resources, they will tell us, because it's marketing and they have a business model and it's a differentiation for their competition, but this is just like a business narrative then, but I don't know, in general.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was a question, right?
Do you see any progress in explainability of AI algorithms or models?
To be honest, the last time I read something about this was for my master thesis, so that's quite a while ago. But my master thesis was about fooling explainability methods. So and to my knowledge, this is still possible. But nonetheless, I think it's an important research area. And but we should also concentrate on maybe not building ever bigger, greater systems, but rather maybe also for the use cases, for some use cases that we have. And I don't want to say never use AI or machine learning, as I'd rather call it. But choose the right thing for the problem, right? Which can be a simple regression in some cases, right? So choose whatever does the job, but take the simplest thing that does the job. That's what I would go with. But yeah, I can't really say much more to explainability.
I feel utterly stupid now, but explainability does mean what exactly?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good question, yeah. So there's this term XAI, explainable artificial intelligence, and because neural networks essentially are very difficult to understand, or even impossible to understand at some size, people are trying to create certain tools to make it easier to reason what the machine might be basing its decision on. For instance, when it looks at a picture and it decides that picture shows a dog, there's tools that will sort of try to highlight which parts of the picture this network is supposedly focusing on, for instance, right? And these can be fooled. So, yeah.
Right in the back? Yeah, you. Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Two really good presentations, and I like the juxtaposition. The first one had been so shiny. I tried by my own. I have started ChatGPT and similar tools, but I also liked Steffi's presentation showing on the downside of the whole process we are just in. And what I wonder, Steffi said two essential things. It's all about power, and technology won't help mankind at all in the long run. It may help to do things or set, perhaps tomorrow to write articles, to get rid of all the journalists, for example. But let's think about 14 months ago, Putin might have he had bad advisors. In that way, he started the war against Ukraine. But what had happened if you had a tool like ChatGPT? And Eric Schmidt and Kissinger, they published about 3 weeks ago a really good article in the Wall Street Journal about the possible implications of these new tools for the world at all, for world politics. And I think we have to expect that the Americans, that the Russians, that especially the Chinese will use these kind of tools for decision support in politics. And I think that's really dangerous. That's one development. Another development, education. Here tonight, we are a little bit like 500 years ago when everybody in the upper class in Europe spoke Latin. Tonight we spoke English. But look at our society. How many people in our society speak English? I'm not so sure. How many people in our society, especially younger people, understand what's happening at this moment? I'm not so sure. And I think we should think about the implications. I'm not sure what we can do to get things better. I don't think that we can get rid of ChatGPT and consorts. Yeah, it's disruptive and it will be part of our environment for the future.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Do you want to repeat it?
No. I think there's some interesting observations there. I didn't hear a question, so I'm just going to comment on what you said, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about political advice essentially generated by ChatGPT, but I think it was a month ago that I read an article that I don't remember where it was, but I think maybe Ecuador, but I'm not sure, where a court of law has actually used ChatGPT somehow in their ruling, which I found very weird, and they thought it was a very positive experience. So I don't really know. And there's also this projection that lawyers are in big trouble because of this tool, which I'm not so sure about. But yeah, I think what we need to talk about, or what you mentioned there, regarding information and who, like power structures, right? Who knows what, and that knowledge is power to some extent as well, but even more power is made by money, essentially, right? So, and money buys education. I don't know where I'm going here, but I'm just blabbering on. No.
Please go down there.
No, but essentially, I think it's an important point to actually go out and also don't talk Latin to the public, and also hold maybe the media a little bit more responsible for what kind of stories they publish and which ones they don't publish, right? If everybody's, like, if there are 100 articles and 95 of them are about AGI and like the dangers of, I don't know, in 50 years or 5 years or what might happen, then I don't think that's a very good balance, right? So.
Can I just comment to that as well?
Yeah.
I think, I'm Davina. It's not my opinion, it's just me watching Black Mirror, loving all this sci-fi stuff. Just straight commenting to that, being scared of having AI integrated into political systems when people are so corrupt. I mean, are humans doing it really well? Just the idea of, can a computer actually be more objective with decision making based on just calculating numbers, and there is no, it hasn't been paid off, hasn't been in any corruption. Just the idea of it, is it really that much worse that AI could somehow be integrated into decision making if humans can be so manipulated and maybe a computer can't? Maybe a computer can be manipulated. That's why I'm just
Essentially flawed from the beginning.
Is it making it worse? Because I think that's just the open question into this.
Yeah.
They adjust. It's a very good idea, but again, to power. Who has the power?
Yeah.
And do we really delegate power to computer systems.
Yeah.
And we don't decide it. But what happened within the last 10, 15 years, more and more autocratic governments came up in the world. Yeah? And they will use these kind of tools to get more and more in power. That's my fear. Yeah?
But will it be the same without computing?
No. In that way, technology,
You know what I mean? What's the solution
technology
here
in its
with or
own
without
won't
AI?
make the world
Hold
better.
back.
Yeah?
On this topic? Oh.
Well, yeah, kind of. I'm taking this one question at a time. So I'm sorry, I only remember your Twitter handle. Stefanie, was it?
Steffi, yeah.
Yes. You advocated for taking action, right? And I think that's great. But now that it's been unleashed on the free market, as they like to call it, there's no reining it in as an individual. Like, I'm not gonna stop GPT whatever from replacing me one day. So what does legislation, what does effective legislation look like? Like Italy banned ChatGPT outright, I think, over privacy concerns. What do lawmakers need to think about now?
Many things, right? Great question, though, for sure. So I think there's definitely more qualified people than me to talk about this. I'm not a legislator. I don't know anything about laws, so just a heads up. But I read what other people say about this. And essentially, we already have privacy regulations, right? We have the GDPR. And according to the GDPR, tech companies shouldn't just be allowed to scrape our data. And there is, for example, I don't know whether you've heard of Clearview AI. Yeah, this is a company, for the others who haven't heard of it, founded, I think they sit in New York. And they basically scraped last year, I think the number was like 30 billion images or something of everyone. I'm in their database, you're in their database, we all are, essentially. And they sell their software to law enforcement agencies all over the planet.
Facial recognition.
It's facial recognition, essentially. Like, you put in a picture of someone and they will come up with other pictures and links and maybe more information about you. And so they scraped Europeans' data, and some European agencies, essentially I think Italy is among them, I think Ireland, are not happy about it and have basically warned them that they will sue. But so far, none of them actually has. And even if they do, Clearview has been saying, well, we don't have an office in the EU, so come and get at us. And that's, I think, a big power move from their side, right? And now we're going to have to see what the EU and the GDPR offices of each country actually do about this, right? And this, we also should, as citizens, also make people aware. Like, there's a guy in Hamburg that is the GDPR officer that's also been made aware of certain things which he hasn't reacted to, very sadly. So not by me, by the way. But yeah, this is one thing. So enforce actually the laws that are there, and not only come around with scary rhetoric, but do try to actually find them for doing these things. And then also, they are talking about the AI Act now. They're actually pretty far into the process already. And one problem is, well, I don't know, we have a meetup at Innovex actually next month about the AI Act, so just some, if you want to visit more events, where someone that does actually understand that stuff is going to talk about this. So, yeah, but they're trying to put in place a risk assessment system sort of thing, where like very risky AI is outright forbidden. I think there's some use cases, like for instance in HR, for instance, or I'm not actually sure. Healthcare has also got very strict rules there and so on. But there's also use cases, like I guess a lot of the creative industry will not be so badly affected by this, right? But still, big tech companies go in and they lobby like there's no tomorrow. So And they've been actually trying to lobby the last few months for getting their foundation models, so these huge generative AI models, out of this regulation. And that's bad. And so with that, I think also we as citizens have to actually get active and write MEPs, because sometimes they just don't know what's going on, right? Some of them will obviously also be somewhat corrupt, not pointing fingers, but yeah, but still, I think I was planning on actually finding emails and writing people and telling them, look, this is a really decisive moment right now in history, regulating AI. So please beware what these guys are trying to do. Yeah.
So if I may follow up. Sorry.
Simon.
No, I mean, you just said next month there will be someone actually talking about the topic who knows their stuff, and you know obviously way more than I do in that regard. The only thing I know, and working, I'm also chairman of an association here in Hamburg, a non-profit association working closely with politics. And what's interesting is that while I'm not AI focused, but in general, or we are not AI focused, but extended realities, but still innovation, which has been tackled pretty much the same way as AI in general. It's really interesting to see how slow, of course, the structures are, and especially the speed we're facing right now. It's fair to say, I should be careful right now. We are online, no, but in general, it's fair to say that there are good people actually working on that, but the structures being set up over decades are way too slow to handle that kind of process that we're facing right now. And I don't know if there is any answer to that, but you were asking another question and another hand has been raised. I don't know.
There's one answer. There are a lot of unqualified, or at least not very highly qualified people supporting these decisions, because the government doesn't really pay that well. So if you want to contribute, go and be an expert for the government. They usually are looking for that. And one big area that's currently on focus is predictive policing.
God.
Already
Straight out of a dystopian movie.
Right now by German police forces. That I don't think it's Clearview AI, but similar tools.
Peter Thiel's company.
Yeah.
Palantir, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Palantir. So Peter Thiel, Google him if you don't know. Great guy. Yeah. Not scary at all. Yeah, vampire Peter. Yeah. Yeah, Google him now. Now you're definitely gonna Google him. Yeah.
Sorry for hogging the mic, but following that up directly, so you mentioned regulating the data and regulating the use cases, and if I paid attention, there was a third pillar to this whole thing in your presentation, which was the algorithms. Is there any way you could mandate these algorithms to be in some way publicly accessible? Maybe not open source, but in some way publicly documented or specified, such that they could be assessed.
Yeah, so the question was whether the third pillar that I've mentioned in my talk, which was basically the algorithms, whether there's any options of regulation to actually assess them, not necessarily making them open source, but documenting and making them auditable. That's what I got. I do think that some parts of the AI Act actually tackle this, right? And I do realize also that you can't open source everything. There's got to be trade secrets, right? But even open sourcing something like ChatGPT wouldn't do the trick by itself, right? You also need researchers, and there needs to be third parties that have got nothing to do with the company, in my opinion, that go and do this work, right? And this work also needs to be paid, because right now what happens a lot of the time is researchers do this work for free, or interested citizens, let's say that have a technological background, do this work, and they're essentially up against like a Goliath, right? And this is something that needs to change, and regulation needs to be put into place for companies to actually document their processes. That will be done, right? But that also comes with additional burdens as well. So that you need to keep like a sort of balance between like overburdening small startups, for instance, that are just trying to get a foothold in their business and maybe in AI, and then also regulating large companies like Google, who have the resources and the people, and who are now going ahead and firing their ethical AI teams at this moment in time. So yeah, there needs to be a balance there for sure, but I'm not, like I said, also not a regulatory expert, so I think some other people will have better points to make here. Maybe Simon. No.
Yeah, just a reminder, please put the link to the Innovex meetup in the comments for this meetup. Yes, please.
So I think we're all very pessimistic about the potential use cases of AI in the future. Bringing it down like one step, when we talk about biases or the data that's used for algorithms, do you know of any good way to solve the problem of bias and the way the data is really responsible for the outcome of such products? Because on the one side you could say, okay, we just have to like choose the right data, which then comes to who is choosing it and how is it possible to choose this amount of data in an ethically responsible way. Or the other side would be, okay, how can we simply have data that is free of bias, which is so attackable by anyone who is trying to fill and the internet is super big, but big corporates are able to fill the internet with such amounts of useless or very biased data that every algorithm that is built, even by smart and ethically responsible individuals or groups, can only be bringing up bullshit. So do you know of any good way? Because I have not been able to find like a good idea for even this small part of the problem.
Do you want to go first once?
Yes. Wow, I like where this is going. No, in general, you mentioned a lot of things that are already a reality. Like there are huge data sets that have been trained with all the biases we as humans carry around and how the world has been shaped for decades by people in power. There's no easy way around this. For instance, one could, of course, you could train your own model. That'd be, well, you could do that. That will take some time and some money and whatnot. But there are people actually working on stuff like that, right? Like maybe not on that extent, and of course not on the level of ChatGPT. But I think one of the core things, as with all digital media these days, is media literacy. You have to be aware of the output. What is the actual output? The machines will, of course, as long as they are trained that way. But I mentioned that earlier, that in the corner over there, that, for example, Midjourney doesn't always output. It still puts out very beautiful people by normative standards, but it doesn't always put out white people now. So that's an effort, like being cool. If I define people, it's not just white people. Well, cool story. So there is some kind of progress there, but in the end, it's all about, that's what I meant with being the curator of the output. We all have also a responsibility of what we do with that kind of tools. I could create hate speech, but I could also do great work with that. And I need to be aware of the fact that these systems are biased and that the output should always be questioned. Of course, not all people will do that because, well, they don't do that with way simpler methods now. And they're more like, oh, wow, it's amazing. It wrote my thesis, I don't know, my paper, and it's really complicated. But that's what we need to do, like creating that kind of discourse, talking about these issues and making them visible. I have no simpler answer than that right now.
I think that we have to say goodbye to the idea that data can be neutral, right? Or that algorithms can be neutral. AI is used to categorize. That's the purpose of AI, or that was its original purpose, right? And now it's producing things on its own as well. But essentially, we cannot get rid of bias in our minds and in our societies, and so we cannot completely get rid of bias in AI either. But the thing is, there is certain practices and certain things that you can do. You can be very careful in curating data sets, and you can look at what others have done before you. I think Hugging Face, for instance, the company, is doing a pretty good job at this. And they also put up a lot of resources of how people can, for instance, document their data sets. And that's another critical aspect, right? People, if you put a data set out in the world, people should know what's in it, right? You should document what the distribution is of certain classes in that data set, for instance, and what you could be doing with it and what you shouldn't be doing with it, for instance. And the same goes for models as well. And then, yeah, I also can recommend a book here, which is called Data Feminism. It's a really great book. You can actually read it online. It's like an HTML book as well. And they have got a lot of different stories by activists who try to basically include marginalized groups into the data collection process, and how you can actually start from that rather than concentrating on the sort of normative and easily available reality sort of thing, right? Rather than that, sample the voices that are not heard so often and actually let the people speak. And that can also be done through art, for instance, right? So there's many ways of doing this, but it's not necessarily, it's difficult, right? And it's not necessarily the most profitable way of doing something. So that's why a lot of people shy away from it. But I think it's great if people tackle this, and we should be all doing, especially when we work in data science or machine learning, we should be doing more of that and speaking more about this. So, yeah.
So basically the solution is that everybody in this room has to take 5 loved ones and friends, educate them about AI, and then tell them to do the same.
Yeah, let's go.
Great.
You're all here. Talk to 5 other people.
Now go out.
Um,
Spread the word.
Last question from the audience, please. Yeah, you. But you have time afterwards to discuss in smaller groups again.
Regarding control layer between the AI and the user interface, what's your opinion about that? So the input, if I interact with ChatGPT, then it doesn't, when the AI generates something, it doesn't get directly output to myself. There's a control layer between that, could maybe block something.
Yeah.
What's your opinion about that? And what do you think, how should it be used, and what should be... Is it good? Is it possible?
Okay, so the question was whether ChatGPT has got a control mechanism. They essentially have built in a categorizer which looks at your input and sees whether it's basically insulting or you basically trying to let it output something bad, right? And it most of the time stops you from doing that, or stops ChatGPT from outputting that, and it's saying, no, I'm just a language model and I'm trying to be nice or whatever. It didn't always do that. That's the thing. I think it's important to have these things put into place, but also on top of good data curation practices, which OpenAI hasn't been an example of, right? So what essentially they did, and we talked about this in the break already, is that they outsourced the work of training this classifier for toxic content to people in Kenya, right? And $2. They pay them $2 an hour.
A day.
No, I think an hour. Yeah,
okay.
let's be fair. It's $2 a day. Yeah, right. Let's be fair. Yeah, exactly. So they outsourced that to to a company that employed people in Kenya to do that, and they actually described the experience as traumatic. 4 people were interviewed by, I think, the Times, and one of them said he had to read like a really horrible abuse scene, and was really shocked by that. And they were supposed to get counseling, but they didn't, and so it was like all a really horrible story. And that's like not the end of the line, right? So this whole content moderation thing is also, we know there's already about Facebook and so on. This is going and really impacting human lives. So I think first of all, pay them more if they need to do this horrible work. Yeah, that's the first thing that should happen. But also think about how you can actually prevent these things in the first place, maybe, right? You will not be able to prevent all of this because the internet is full of rubbish, right? But look at, if you amass such huge data sets, nobody actually can look at this anymore. And the question is really, do we need that? And in what circumstances is that actually justified and reasonable to do it? Or can we also live with less and possibly better data sets that take longer to create, right? So, yeah.
Not so much to add there, apart from the question that's coming back to me, considering who defines in that control layer what is good, what is bad, what should pass through the actual model. And then we're back at the start again. Who has the power to define that? Is that us, the society? Yeah, and certain, our standards, societal standards, of course, prevent us right now from, or are influencing companies like OpenAI to not let this happen. But if we had different standards in our society, of course, OpenAI would allow us to have the wildest gore fantasies on there, and Midjourney as well, and so on. Elon Musk, yeah. Good guy.
Yeah.
He and his buddy Peter.
Oh yeah, I'm not sure they're buddies anymore, but yeah.
Next time we turn off the stream.
No, just wanted to add, because I'm not sure whether he's actually gonna pull through with this, but Elon decided that ChatGPT is too woke. And so he wants to basically create an unwoke version of ChatGPT that we can all look forward to. So that's going to be great fun.
No, in the end, that's not the wording he used per se, but it's going into that direction. But it raises questions again and again. This is not a binary state. AI can do good stuff. AI can also do horrible stuff. And Elon Musk, of course, has a very distinct political narrative going on. Yeah, he's against wokeness, but on the other hand, who defines what again and again is a spinning, and that's the thing with innovation, technology, progress, evolution, and that, if you will, that we need to discuss this to actually shape that narrative. And there is no perfect state, never will be, but we can at least try to head into that direction, and it will be a shit ton of work.
Wow, what a discussion. Thank you so much for joining in. I know we talked a lot about challenges in our fireside chat now. Sorry for not focusing on the creative part so much.
That's fine. Seen pictures, that's great.
Great. But one last question to round this up, and then we have some more time to network. So, looking at all these challenges we have right now, what is something we all can do in this room right now? I know we talked about bias, but maybe more general. What are things we all can do to tackle these challenges?
We had that actually here, like the core part, and this is also my mentality when it comes to all kinds of technologies. It's hands-on. You have to experience what you are talking about. You don't have to be a professional. I'm not no AI professional either, but don't be afraid to use that. Observe, analyze, see what's going right, what's going wrong, and then iterate, talk, educate people, go into discussions, even if people, and that's like one of the main topics in our time and our society right now, different opinions aren't inherently bad, and embrace that. Talk to people. I mean, that's me talking as a metaverse XR super future guy to many of my friends. I like people, and I like to live in the real world still, and the real world shouldn't go to shit. That'd be great.
Yeah, very good points. Yeah, like what we said earlier, go out, talk to 5 people. Hopefully they will talk to 5 people. That's the first thing that we can do. I'd also like to point out that there's quite a few good journalism on this topic as well, right? For instance, there's a few journalists at MIT Technology Review who are covering this very well. Karen Howe is a name that you can remember. I will probably have to post that somewhere. So I've made many lists of resources that people can look at. I've got books and podcasts and for everyone essentially, right? So that's if you need information, hit me up, or I will post this on Twitter as well and let you know. So that's the first thing. Learn about this, stay informed, like Simon said, and talk to others. And then also what I think is really important, and I've been asked this in the break as well, so I haven't really offered any solutions in my talk to the problems that we're facing. And that I don't think I think that would be what is the English word for hubris? So, like I don't know. So it's basically I don't feel like a god, like I should tell the other 8 billion people out there what they should be doing with their lives and what things to care about. But I think if you do care about something, then it's about time to get active now, right? Whether it's climate change, whether like to get more bicycles on the street or public transport, or whether you care about animals, you care about the planet as a whole, you care about people, you care about people being treated fairly, you care about equity. There's things that you can do, right? And the first thing is get information, and then find people that care about issues that you care about as well, because you cannot change the world on your own, but you can try to shape it in collectives, right? So that's a really important thing. And I think what we should also be doing is supporting people that are already having, like already collectives and trying to change the world. For instance, Gewerkschaften, right? Support strikes. So I'm really, unionize, support strikes, support, even though it's annoying. I know if you sit at the airport or you sit somewhere and you can't get from A to B, you really want to take your deserved holiday. Please think of the people that they're actually fighting for something that's justified in most cases, right? In Germany, you cannot strike unless it's properly justified. We have very strict laws about this. So that's something, and then you can also, if you care about privacy, for instance, and you care about the European governments not deciding to read all of our chat messages, you can also get active against chat control, for instance, supporting one of the organizations like EDRI, the European Digital Rights Initiatives, who had just celebrated their 20th birthday. And get active, and also talk to politicians, and try to actually be the expert and say, look, I know about this stuff, listen to me, right?
Thank you so much, you two. Steffi, we need all your comments in the meetup group. I didn't have the time to write them down. Thank you so much for joining in today. Great insights. Thanks to you all for being so active on this Fireside chat. And if you have further questions, we have now about half an hour left that we can stay here. But also, those two are present on social media. Ask them questions afterwards. Thank you.